You're listening to Sway in the morning on Shea 45.
Felicia Davis is with us right now. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Man, I can't complain. You're the chief of staff here, right?
First deputy. First deputy chief of staff.
First, what does that mean? First deputy chief of staff. That's another layer.
If the chief of staff can't complete her duties, then I fulfill all the duties of the chief of staff.
Oh, okay, cool. And you work with the mayor's office.
I work with the mayor. Yes, I do.
Mayor Rahm Emanuel.
Rahm Emanuel.
Okay.
My boss.
That's
Hi,
your boss.
that
okay.
he is.
What is it like working for him? I met him when he was working with President Obama. And we did back in 2008, I believe it was, and we were doing some interviews with the president with MTV, and I got a chance to meet him briefly. What is it like working for the mayor?
It's awesome.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How did you manage that?
I worked on his campaign. I'm a former police officer, so I was a police, popo for 10 years. And I'm born and bred in Chicago, South Side, so I worked on his campaign. We got to know each other. And he said, I'm going to ask you a question, and there's only one answer, just like when our president asked me. And he asked me to join the administration, so I was excited.
Wow, congratulations. And, of course, I want to ask you, what is the state of Chicago? But first, what are some of the positives about Chicago when people come to visit? I
mean, Chicago is a world-class city. The first, starting with music, you talked about a little bit. We got a bunch of good contemporary artists, but we are the home of house. We're the home of gospel. Wow. We're the home of blues. We're the home of jazz. So much music comes up out of the Chi, and so people just need to recognize. We're hosting Lollapalooza this weekend, one of the biggest, baddest music festivals. We had Pitchfork last weekend. We do a lot from the music scene. But Chicago is just great. It's a great place to live. I've lived here my whole life. I'm from the South Side.
You're from South Side?
I'm from South Side.
Whoop, whoop. Okay, yo, they're getting crunk out there. Look, the natives getting restless at the beach. All right, go.
But, it's a great place to raise a family. And you only hear the little bit about the bad stuff, but they don't talk about the good. Most of the young people in Chicago, just like the artists you just had, are out there trying to make positive changes. They're out there trying to change their community. They're out there trying to go to school, figuring it out, just like the grown folks are trying to figure it out. You don't hear about that. You don't hear about the wonderful lakefront. Y'all seen our lakefront?
Yeah, your lakefront is awesome.
It's awesome. So you don't hear about that, the businesses. You don't hear about how health and wellness and the other things that Chicago's doing. So, we got it going on.
Now, in terms of the violence that does take place in Chicago, it was Chicago, like Oakland, was decentralized. Do you give that? Is that one of the reasons behind the violence, do you think?
The thing is, when you look at the history of Chicago, there's always been a level of violence in the city. When you look at the history of our country, there's always been a level of violence in this country. So it's not the easy access to guns is one reason why. There are other conditions that kind of cause it. But the first thing I always say, we got to look at ourselves, right? When you look at the numbers, there are millions. Chicago is a big city, and millions of people call their home here, but there aren't millions of shootings. There aren't millions of muggings or anything like that. It's a very small percentage, but unfortunately that's what gets taken up on the headline. So I always like to say, when you go into a community, you go into Roseland, you go into the southeast side, or you go into Chatham or any place else, they're just working families trying to make it work.
I don't want to trivialize at all what happened with Trayvon Martin. It's so unfortunate. It was a tragedy, that young man had to lose his life and to his family and friends. But, I also know that happened in Florida, and there's a lot that happens here in Chicago and other places. That actually brought out a lot of public figures, Why do you feel like, do you think it would help if those same public figures who are against what happened with the Stand Your Ground law and in Florida, there's a lot of artists that are protesting, performing there. If you had that same, support and public figures advocated what was going on in Chicago to change, do you think that'd help in terms of what's going on in the streets?
I don't know what the long-term effects it's going to have for Florida for all those people coming out. So this is what I say about the city that I love. There are a lot of people here who are doing great work, and those people and those voices need to be elevated. There's a lot of work that the mayor does that doesn't get recognized. One of the things, I've been with him, is meeting with these families, calling families who've been victimized by gun violence, going to them to hospitals, going to them, meeting with them, having lunch, breakfast with them, and sitting in their homes and listening to their stories. I think what we need more of is that human connection. I mean, people coming in is great. I welcome people coming to Chicago. I hope they spend some money in our hotels and our restaurants and our shops. But what we need here really is to elevate the voices of people who are already working in the community, because they know our neighborhoods better than anybody else.
That's what's up. Felicia Davis, thank you for joining us.
It's Sway in the morning, only on Shea 45.